Hello, and welcome to your virtual coffee tasting. My name is Cyrenthia, and I'm going to be guiding you through this tasting today. And you can pause at any time or rewind if you need to hear something again or take a second to grab something. I'm going to start off by sharing my screen just so you can make sure that you have everything that you're going to need for today's tasting. So for today, you are going to need a grinder if you have whole bean coffee. If you did receive whole bean coffee, you should have also received a grind sample. This is just to give you an idea of how big your coffee ground should be, or small, depending. And you want to get as close to that as possible, but this process is very forgiving. So don't stress too much about it if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than the grind sample. You also need 12 grams of coffee or 2 tablespoons. That's where the scale, tablespoon, and measuring pitcher comes in. At the bottom down there will be with our water and our coffee, but you're going to need 12 grams of coffee or 2 tablespoons. You're going to need 1.5 liters of water heated to 205 degrees Fahrenheit or 96 degrees Celsius. If you're using a stovetop kettle and you don't have a thermometer, this is about 3 to 5 minutes off boil. So once your water has reached boil, go ahead and pull it off and it'll be ready to go in about 3 to 5 minutes. You need 5 mugs that can hold at least 7.5 ounces apiece. You need your tasting form and flavor wheel, 2 additional mugs. So this is 7 mugs in total, 5 that can hold 7.5 ounces each. The extra 2 mugs can be any size. You need 2 spoons, soup or teaspoons work great. The best thing I can say about the spoons is that it helps if they are the same size. So any size spoon with the same size spoon works best. You need a writing utensil. And yeah, that's it actually. It's already mentioned the scale, tablespoon, and measuring pitcher. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to start off by smelling our coffee grounds dry, and then we will pour our hot water on it and let our coffee steep. And then we will taste our coffee, and then I will reveal to you a little bit about each coffee, give you more of my thoughts and our thoughts here at Driftaway. You may experience something different, and that's totally okay. This is a very subjective exercise, especially when it comes to the way that the coffee smells and tastes. So don't be too worried about getting the right or wrong answer. Just go with your gut in all of this. I want to go over our flavor wheel and tasting form here in just a second, just so that you can make sure that you understand what it is that you're looking at and what we're going to be doing today. And no need or no worries if you have never done anything like this before, or you're not used to brewing your own coffee. I will be guiding you through step by step. So go ahead and grab your flavor wheel and your tasting form. We're going to be focusing on the first column first, which is flavor and aroma. Not flavor and aroma, fragrance and aroma. Fragrance is how the coffee smells dry, and aroma is how the coffee smells saturated, and we will be taking note of both. The other 4 items on your tasting form we will go over once we get to the tasting portion. But to start, we are going to just smell the coffee. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a cup. I'm going to start on my far left, which is where I put my yellow. And you're just going to pick it up and give it a little shake or tap it on your palm. Oh, let me say this first. I apologize. My coffee is already in my cups. You want to put your coffee in your cups. I apologize. Go ahead and put your 12 grams or 2 tablespoons of coffee in each of your cup. I suggest putting your bag behind the cup that you're using, just so you don't forget which is which. And again, this is a pretty forgiving process. So it's a little bit over or a little bit under 2 tablespoons or 12 grams. That is okay. Then once you have your coffee in your cups, you can start smelling them. And we are doing all 5 coffees, all 5 of the coffees. And the way that you smell your coffee is you just pick it up, give it a little shake, tap it on your palm, and do short bunny sniffs. You're wondering, what am I smelling for? And the answer is anything that you can think of, anything that comes to your mind. So when you take a sip, sorry, not when you take a sip, when you take a sniff, you're going to go with whatever your gut tells you. So if your gut's like, this smells like coffee, just go with that to start. If you feel like you're picking up on something, but you're just not quite sure what it is, then you can use your flavor wheel to kind of help narrow your thoughts down. So if you take a sniff and you think it smells kind of fruity, you can go to your flavor wheel to the fruit section and see if any of those words apply to what it is that you're experiencing. But again, more than anything, you want to go with your gut. So if you feel like they all smell the same, that's okay. Once we pour the water on, that will change how they smell a little bit. And even if you're not able to pick out anything specific at that point, you will, begin to notice that there are some differences between the coffees, even if you don't know what those differences are. So whenever you're ready, you can begin. Just pick a cup, give a little shake, or tap it on your palm and do short bunny sniffs. You don't want to inhale too deep because you don't want the coffee to fly into your nose. And you don't want to blow into your cup either because you don't want the coffee to go whoop, right into your face. Go ahead and pause here and take a moment to sniff all of your coffees and take notes in the first column of your tasting form for the fragrance. Once your hot water has reached boil and you've pulled it off and it's been about 3 to 5 minutes, you can begin the brewing process. And I will guide you through that. So go ahead and push pause and take a moment to smell your coffees and then come right back with your hot water so that we can brew our coffees. I'll grab my hot. So for brewing our coffee, there are a few things to know. One, you want to make sure you're putting enough enough water in each cup. So you want to put in at least 7 ounces, and that's where your measuring cup comes in. So 7 ounces, I guess even 3/4 of a cup could work. And you want to pour that in your cup and make sure that all of the coffee is saturated. You don't want any dry spots on the top. So turning your cup as you pour can really help with that. Also, once your hot water is in your cups, do not stir. We are not going to stir these just yet. We're going to let these sit and brew for 3 minutes without doing anything to them. And so whenever you're ready, you can begin. I am going to spotlight my top-down camera so you can see. I'm just going to each cup, pouring in about 7 ounces, making sure that all of my coffee is saturated. You may notice some physical differences amongst your coffees. You may notice that some look lighter than others. You may notice that there's more grounds on the top of some than it is others. Anything that you're picking up, you can take note of. But again, for now, we're just pouring water in all 5 of our cups and letting them sit for 3 minutes. You also want to pour some water in one of your side mugs as well. One of the 2 extra that you grabbed for this. And that water does not have to be hot. That water just is for rinsing our spoon. So if you run out of hot water, you can use tap water or bottled water, whatever works for you. Once you have hot water in all of your cups, go ahead and begin smelling. So I definitely suggest leaning over the cups and smelling that way instead of picking them up and bringing them to your face, just because the cups can be hot. And also, you don't want to move them around too much. You don't want to disturb these grounds. So leaving them alone as much as possible. But I do know that sometimes it's hard to smell when they're all in a row like this. So if you need to move one out of the group to smell it, just slide it back in gently and be careful not to spill it or disturb the grounds. Take a few moments to pause here and smell all of your coffees and take notes. In that first column again, we are smelling for the aroma. As time goes on, you may notice that the red and the yellow coffee's tops look a little different than the other three, and that's normal. That's okay. Sorry about my sneezing. It's that time of year. Okay. Let's move on to our next step, which is called breaking the crust. So our next step is going to be stirring this coffee. And I did tell you to get spoons. Okay, perfect. We're going to use our spoons now and we're going to stir this coffee. And we are not going to stir it traditionally where you just put the spoon in and give it a stir. We are going to stir just the tops because we don't want to disturb any of the grounds that have already fallen to the bottom. And us giving this coffee a gentle stir is going to allow a majority of the remaining grounds to also fall to the bottom. So this is how you do that. You take your spoon, one of your spoons, and dip it in your rinse water. Now you can come to your cup and smell as you do this, and this will allow you to get one last big burst of smell from your coffee. And again, you don't have to have anything written down if you don't want to. It doesn't have to be specific. Just whatever comes to your mind is what we're looking for. So hopefully the burst of smell at the least will let you smell that or let you notice that all of these smell different from each other. So what you're going to do is come to the side of the cup that's closest to you, dip your spoon in, and as soon as it starts to take on liquid, you're going to want to just push up gently and give a few turns. Again, if your nose is right next to the cup as you do this, you can get one last burst of smell. You will notice a difference in the thickness of these coffees as you stir them. Great. Now our next step is called cleaning the cup. And what that is us scraping this foam that has formed on the top off. This foam is a result of CO2 being released from the coffee while it's brewing, and it is a little bitter. And so that it doesn't obstruct our taste, we're going to scrape it off today. If you normally make coffee and you have a little foam in there, it's no problem. You can just stir it in. But just for our purposes today, we will be scraping it off. And I'm going to show you how. And I will admit that this part is a little tricky, but it's not impossible. So you're going to take both of your spoons and dip it in your rinse water, or dip them in your rinse water. You're going to take your spoons and just line them up as best as you can. Wherever they lay flush within each other is where you want them to be. Then you're going to go into a wide V and go to the top of your cup. Once there, we're going to just, again, dip it in just so it starts to take on a little bit of water. And then pull our spoons apart so that they're touching the inner parts of both sides of the cup while also touching each other. Then you're going to pull down, dragging that foam down with you, bringing your spoons together as you get closer to the bottom. Then you scoop that foam out and put it into your empty mug, and then rinse. If you have some floaters left on the top, just gently scoop those out. If you have any foam left on the top, you can always take the back of your spoon and just kind of skim the top to grab that foam off. It doesn't have to be completely clear. You just need enough space to drink from. Doing that one twice in hopes to pick up some floaters, but I didn't. I'm just gonna go in. There we go. Okay. Once you're done cleaning your cups, if you need to, you can replace your rinse water. Our next step will be tasting our coffee. I'm gonna go ahead and replace my water. Okay. Let's talk about tasting in our tasting form. So you have 4 columns for tasting on your tasting form: flavor, body, acidity, and aftertaste. Flavor is your perception of how this coffee tastes, and there is no right or wrong answer with that. Just like with smell, we're going with our gut. So you take a sip, whatever comes to your mind first, write that down. We can use the flavor wheel, of course, to help narrow those thoughts down. So if you take a sip and it tastes kind of chocolatey, you can go to the flavor wheel and kind of decide what kind of chocolate it tastes like. Is it a little bit bitter like a dark chocolate, or is it creamy and sweet like a milk chocolate? Utilize that flavor wheel and trust yourself. Next is body. Body is how the coffee feels in your mouth. So when you take a sip and swish it around, you're taking note of if it feels watery or tea-like, which is a light body, or if it feels heavy and dense, and that's going to be a heavier body. Next is acidity. Acidity is the perceived brightness of the coffee. So when you take a sip, you're noticing how your mouth reacts to the coffee. So when you take a sip, if your jaw clenches or your mouth starts to salivate, that's going to be a higher acidity. If you take a sip and it feels kind of mute like milk, that's going to be a lower acidity. Last is aftertaste. Aftertaste is what's left over once we drink the coffee. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. We're noting whether the aftertaste lingers or if the aftertaste leaves quickly. For all of these, definitely utilize the fact that there are 5 coffees in a row and you can compare them to each other. So if you're having a hard time figuring out the body or acidity of a coffee, compare it to 2 or 3 other coffees on the table and see where it falls on the spectrum then. Next, we're going to taste. Let's go ahead and taste, and I'm going to show you how. There are 2 ways to taste. In the coffee world, we use a spoon, and all we do is we dip the spoon in, and you can blow your coffee if you're not sure if it's hot or not. Just dip the spoon in and slurp. The more aggressive the slurp, the better. Yay. We are trying to get the coffee to spray into our mouths so that the coffee covers our entire tasting palette while also aerating it at the same time, allowing us to smell and taste at the same time so that we're able to perceive flavor, body, and all of that better. The second way to taste is directly from the cups. This one Be careful because they are hot, but also there are grounds in there. So remember that for either way that you decide to drink. But people have told me that they like to drink from the cup directly because that's how they normally drink coffee. So they feel like they're able to pick up on things a little better, which is understandable. So, however you decide to do it, just remember to slurp and remember there are coffee grounds in the bottom. So you don't want to get too wild with the cups, especially with your spoon. Don't go too deep. And if you're tasting directly from the cup, just be cautious of when you're getting too close to the coffee grounds. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and take a moment to taste all 5 of your coffees. I suggest tasting each one at least 3 times. As the coffee cools, you may notice some differences in how they taste, and that is normal for them to start tasting a little different. If you are not able to smell any differences from the coffee and you're concerned about being able to taste them, I guarantee you that you will be able to notice that each of these coffees taste different from one another, even if you're not able to pick up on what those differences are exactly. So enjoy your time. Go ahead and pause now and begin tasting. Okay, welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about each of these coffees. So here at Driftaway, we roast 5 different coffees every month. We love to focus on sustainability alongside of delicious single origin coffees. So you may have noticed that the things in your box are recyclable or compostable. Wonderful. You should have received some cards in your box, which are also recyclable or compostable. And these cards are going to have information about each coffee on there. It's going to talk about where the coffee is from. It's going to talk about the process of the coffee, the roast level of the coffee. But I'm just going to go over a little quickly over each one and what you can expect. So our first coffee, our yellow, is our fruity profile. It's our lightest roast. Excuse me. Here at Driftaway, like I mentioned before, we roast 5 coffees every month. And each month we change the origin of those coffees, the origin being where that coffee is grown, the country. So the tastes are going to be similar, but you're going to have some different notes each month. So the yellow profile is our fruity profile, our lightest roast. It's always going to be a little bit on the more acidic side. And it's also going to have a lighter body with a little bit more of a tea-like or water-like feel to it. I do not recommend cream and sugar in the yellow just because it's super light. You might lose all of your flavor. But if you are a person that normally drinks cream and sugar in your coffee and you're trying to transition into drinking black coffee, a lot of people find the yellow and even the red a little bit easier to drink because it just tastes the least like coffee. Our blue coffee is our classic profile, a medium roast. Supposed to be like if you walked into a coffee shop and said, I'll take 1 cup of coffee, please. A very straightforward coffee. I call it a safe coffee. If someone told me that they enjoy drinking coffee and I didn't know what to get them, I'd probably get them the blue. Our red is the balance profile. This is our medium light roast, and it's a middle ground between the blue and the yellow. The blue will tend to have more nutty or chocolatey notes, and the yellow will have more fruity or floral notes, and the red can exhibit both of those. The red could have a little bit more of a floral, fruity taste, accompanied by some nutty chocolatiness, or it could be vice versa, have a nutty chocolatey taste with accompanied by a little bit of fruit or floral taste to it. The green is our bold profile. It's our medium dark roast. This roast tends to be a little bit more on the bitter side, but it has a nice body that's perfect for cream and sugar. It's going to be a little bit on the heavier side, whereas our yellow and our red were light. Our blue is a little medium, and we start to get into our heavier bodies towards the green and purple side. The green also is a little bit less acidic. You may have experienced some acidity in your red and your yellow, whereas your green and your blue are going to have a little bit less acidity. The green would be great with cream and sugar if you are a cream and sugar person. If the green's a little too bitter for you and you like black coffee, then I suggest just the tiniest little bit of salt to help balance a little bit of that bitterness out. You can put that in the coffee grounds or you can put it directly in your brewed coffee. Our purple coffee is our darkest roast, is our extra bold profile. Excuse me. With this roast typically being more on the smoky dark side. This one is a crowd favorite. This one leans a lot more towards traditional coffee, which is what a lot of us are used to, or even a lot of us think about when we just imagine coffee. And so I find that this one, because of its familiarity, tends to be really popular. It also is really great with cream and sugar as well. That concludes our tasting today. I hope that this was fun and exciting and educational for you. If you need any more information, we have different brew methods, more information about all of our coffees, and other resources on our website, driftaway.com.